It's a new week in the Crew Motorfest and a new month for us, and so we have a new summit. This week is called the FORSBERG DRIFTIDE Summit, and this is my summit guide. Let's go! Alright, let's get into it. So, the Summit Bundle this week will give you the FORSBERG Racing Nissan 370Z Pro Drift and the Nissan Skyline GTR R34 Drift Edition as well. You're going to need only one extra vehicle and then one vehicle if you want to try it. I used it for this one, but you don't have to. You can actually use the 370Z from the Summit Bundle. But if you got access to it because you have the Year 1 Pass, the Ultimaniac is quite good for one of the events. So the Ultimaniac, but if you don't have it, 370Z. Anyways, the additional cars you're going to need are a Bullseye car, and that's about it. You don't need any planes or boats this week. It's just one Bullseye car. You can use your score breaker car like Alpha GP is what I went with. All right, the keys to this summit are slippery and hothead affixes. You need them on basically all of the cars with the exception of the Bullseye car. Here are the pro settings I've got for the 3 cars that I'm using, and then the Ultimaniac I'm still on default because I have not had time to test it, but it actually felt really, really good on default. So anyways, here you go. All right, let's get into the events. So all 6 events are basically the same, but with slightly different drift paths. The advice I have for you is going to apply to all 6 events because it's more just advice about drifting in general. The first thing we need to do though is talk about the difficulty settings and the steering control settings. My suggestion is to try what I have exactly first, and then you can make some adjustments to your liking. I've tried to simplify drifting with these settings, so if you're a higher skilled player, you will find these settings to be useful, but you may want to customize them a little bit to fit your preferred feel for the cars. Just keep in mind that the pro settings for each of these cars was also designed to fit the difficulty and the steering settings that I'm about to talk about. All right, first your difficulty settings. Traction control on comfort, ESP off, drift assist on comfort, counter steering assist on. Then we go over to the control settings, scroll down to steering. Linearity needs to be at 50, dead zone at 0, highest at 100, direct mode off, sensitivity at 80, and dynamic max lock at 70. Alright, now let's talk about the parts. You do not need a full set of Nitrochemist parts or a full set of any parts necessarily. You literally just need 7 legendary parts that can be random set bonuses. I did the whole summit without a full set. However, if you have a set of Nitrochemists, the Extranos does come in handy, and it can bail you out on corners when you make mistakes. What you absolutely have to have for this summit are the affixes called Slippery and Hothead, and you want those on all 7 parts and fully maxed percentages. Those are basically non-negotiable in order to get a good score here. By having both of those equipped on every single part on the car, you can actually max out your multiplier to 188 times your drift score. Now, to get that full 188 times multiplier, you do actually need to have your legend points maxed out on Slippery and Hothead as well, so make sure you don't forget those. Now for some advice. Drifting with the setup that I'm showing you is a slower form of drifting. You should do it in 3rd gear and be as patient as you can with your transitions. You'll basically want to hold that drift a little longer than you think is right or is comfortable, because that transition snaps so fast with these settings. And if you don't like that snappy transition, it's okay. If you find it too hard to control, you can actually drop your dynamic max lock to 50 and then leave everything else the same. If you make that one change, the transitions will feel smoother, but I guarantee you, you cannot score as high by doing that. Having the transition be snappy means that you're not wasting any time with your car going straight. You're going to go from drifting and earning points directly over to the other side to drifting and earning points. You have to have that snappiness in order to keep the score up. But if you're not concerned with the small amount of points that you're going to lose by having your car go straight for just a little bit, then don't worry about it. It's more important that you can control the car rather than maxing out every single little point. Now, when you're in a drift, you need to keep in mind that the counter steering assist is on. So the car is actually doing most of the work for you. If you need to tighten up the drift, steer to the inside of the corner just a bit by tapping the stick in that direction. If you need to go wider, tap the stick toward the outside of the corner. but you shouldn't be steering the entire time. In fact, you're probably going to be off the steering more so than you're going to be on it. You're going to be tapping your steering left and right to keep the car where you want it on the track. But once you hit the correct angle, you really just need to hold the throttle down and manage your speed with your NOS. And speaking of NOS, you should be tapping your NOS throughout your runs to keep your speed up. The faster you go, the further drift distance you will get, and the more points you will score. Now, I did say that this is a slower form of drifting. That's because you can go faster in different builds and different settings, but I feel like this is the most controllable. This is the easiest to score the highest amount of points. So give it your best shot and then make adjustments if you need to. Your goal in each of these events is to finish the entire event without dropping your multiplier. You need to get yourself to that 188 times and then stay there for the duration of the event. Like I said, that is the goal. Everything that you hit, the flags, the cones, the walls, the barriers, the obstacles that are spinning around, all of that stuff, if you even tap it, it's going to drop your multiplier and have you restart over. So you really need to get through these events without touching anything. And the tracks are fairly wide, so I think after a couple of practice runs, you'll definitely be able to get it down. Now, let's say you do tap something in the middle of the event. I actually recommend finishing that event because the points that are being given out in the summit are quite generous, and you might be surprised. You might have enough to get a really high score, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense to keep grinding a specific event even though you're only off by, let's say, 100 or 200 points. Just finish the event. It actually is very good practice for the next time you do it, and see what kind of score you're at and see if you're happy with it. Now, a little bit of advice when initiating a drift. You're going to want to turn into the drift, then let off the steering and allow the counter steering to work its magic. So as soon as the back end gets loose, you see your smoke, just let the car counter steer for you, then adjust the car on the track by, like I said, steering to the inside or steering to the outside. Just make sure you're using the tap steering. You want to tap in the direction that you want to go. And it's basically that simple. Now, because this is literally all the advice that I can give for this, and I figured you guys might want to see my full runs, I'm actually going to put out another video with my full complete runs. If you guys want to watch that, you can. It's really just going to show me going around these tracks fairly smoothly. I have a few mistakes in them, but for the most part, I did pretty well. And if you find that helpful, then you can check that video out. Once it's posted, I'll go back to this video and put a link in the comments so you know where to find it, but I'll probably post it within the next day or so. All right, moving on to the Feats. All three Feats are best in the backward direction. And make sure that you have a car with score breaker parts and skilled as your affix. That's basically it for the Feats this week. They can all be run with the same exact car because they don't require any boats or planes. But it is important to have a set of score breaker parts and make sure you have skilled as your affix and fully maxed out on every single part. All right, that's basically it for this one, guys. Here are my final scores. You're welcome to DM me on Instagram or Discord with any questions you might have. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this helps. I know it's kind of a weird week. There aren't any like shortcuts or super crazy tricks. It's basically just a straightforward drift week. So anyways, I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.